Hey guys, tonight we are going on a little trip. Not to a grand palace, or a bustling Roman forum filled with toga-clad senators. No, tonight we're Gerber and frankly, a lot smellier. We're heading to the absolute rock bottom of the Roman world, to explore an existence so brutal that it makes a legendary-esque life look like a vacation. This isn't one of those journeys where you get to be a philosopher or an emperor. You probably wouldn't make it to lunchtime on your first day. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, I'd love to know where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Drop your city and the time in the comments below. It's always a quiet thrill to see how far these stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your day starts like any other. The sun, a familiar friend, is warming the dusty cobblestones of your small coastal town in Anatolia. You're not a citizen of Rome. Not really, but you're a subject of its vast empire, which mostly just means you pay taxes and try to stay out of trouble. You're an apprentice stonemason, and the air is filled with the clean, sharp smell of cut marble and the faint, sweet scent of figs from a nearby tree. The master is in a good mood today, humming a tune that's probably as old as the hills you can see in the distance. You can hear the distant cry of gulls and the gentle lapping of the Aegean Sea against the shore. It's peaceful. It's predictable. It's your life. Lunch is a simple affair: a chunk of hard bread, some olives, a bit of cheese. You eat it sitting in the shade of a half-finished wall, your back against the cool stone. You think about maybe visiting the girl who works at the bakery later, the one with flour always dusted on her nose. You might even save up enough denarii to buy a small trinket for her at the next market day. These are the small, hopeful thoughts that stitch a life together. You finish your meal, stretch your aching back, and head to the cistern at the edge of the workshop to fetch more water. The alleyway leading to it is narrow, always a little cooler than the main street, and that's when your world ends. It's not dramatic. There's no shouting, no epic struggle. Just a sudden shadow falling over you. Before you can even turn, a rough, foul-smelling burlap sack is pulled over your head, plunging you into darkness. A strong arm wraps around your chest, lifting you off your feet. You try to cry out, but the thick fabric muffles the sound into a pathetic grunt. Your feet scramble for purchase on the ground, but find nothing. You're being carried, quickly and efficiently, away from the sound of the master's humming, away from the smell of cut stone, away from the girl at the bakery. This is how it happens for so many. Piracy was rampant in the Mediterranean, a constant, terrifying background hum to coastal life. While Rome took off periods of cracking down hard, Pompey the Great's famous campaign against the Cilicia and pirates is a prime example. It was a problem that never truly went away. For every fleet they smashed, a dozen smaller crews would spring up like weeds. They were the vultures of the sea, and they preyed on the unprotected. You weren't a soldier captured in glorious battle. You were just unlucky. A commodity walking in the wrong place at the wrong time. The floor beneath you is now wood. It rocks and sways. You've been thrown into the back of a cart, your hands bound tightly behind you. The sack is still on your head, and the world is a terrifying symphony of muffled bumps, the creak of wheels, and the low, guttural language of your captors. Time ceases to have meaning. Is it ours a day you try to hold on to the image of the sun on the cobblestones, but it's already starting to feel like a dream. Here's a little detail that's often lost in the grand epics. Many galley slaves weren't prisoners of war or condemned criminals in the traditional sense. They were simply people who were stolen, kidnapped from shores, from fishing boats, from quiet alleyways just like yours. Historians still debate the true scale of this human trafficking, and whether a freeborn provincial like you, once swallowed by the system, had any theoretical legal recourse. The practical answer, of course, is no. The paperwork of your existence, if it ever existed, is now meaningless. You are cargo. After what feels like an eternity, the cart stops. You're hauled out, your legs weak and trembling, the sack is ripped from your head, and the sudden, blinding sunlight makes you cry out in pain. Your eyes adjust, and you see it. The deep, impossibly blue water of a hidden cove. And floating there, looking like some great, hungry insect resting on the water, is a ship. It's long, low, and menacing. It's not a merchant vessel. It's a warship. A Liburnian, perhaps, or a Trireme. You only know the feeling of dread that washes over you. This is your destination. This is your new world. Your old one, the one with the stonework and the bakery girl, is gone forever. The world outside the ship is the last piece of solid, normal ground you'll feel for a long, long time. Your captors, pirates by the looks of their rough-spun clothes and the cruel, easy way they handle their weapons, shove you and a handful of other terrified men forward. You're a motley collection of humanity, a fisherman still smelling of scales, a farmer whose hands are calloused from a lifetime with a plough, a young traveler with the shocked, empty eyes of someone who has seen his companions cut down. You are all connected now by a single, terrifying thread of fate. You're prodded onto a rickety gangplank, and the ship groans under your weight, as if it's a living beast. The air immediately changes. It's thick with the smell of pine tar, stale sweat, and something else, something acrid and sour that catches in the back of your throat. It's the smell of despair. Once on deck, you are shoved into a line. But there's no warmth in it, only a harsh, unforgiving glare. A man who is clearly the captain, he has a scar that splits his left eyebrow into and wears a vest of boiled leather, walks down the line, inspecting you like you're livestock. He grabs your arm, squeezes your bicep, forces your mouth open to check your teeth. It's a humiliating, dehumanizing process. You are no longer a person. You are muscle. You are an engine component. Then begins the long march. It's not a single journey on that pirate ship. They are wholesalers, and they need to get their product to the retailer. You are transferred from their swift, predatory vessel to a larger, slower merchant cog at a shadowy port of call, a place that exists off the official Roman maps, a haven for smugglers and thieves. Here, you are chained to the other captives, a coffle of human beings, and led ashore. The journey overland is a blur of misery. The chain around your ankle is heavy, and it rubs the skin raw within the first few hours. The man you're chained to, the old farmer, stumbles often. Every time he falls, the chain yanks you, pulling you off balance. You learn quickly to anticipate his faltering steps, to move in a grotesque, clumsy rhythm with him. The guards are brutal and deficient. They don't waste energy on elaborate cruelty. A sharp jab with the butt of a spear is enough to get a fallen man back on his feet. If he can't get up, he is left behind. You don't know what that means, and you don't want to. You walk for days. You cross dusty plains where the heat shimmers above the ground, and you trudge through muddy tracks in forests where unseen things rustle in the undergrowth. You sleep in the open, huddled together for warmth, the chain a cold, constant reminder of your bondage. You are given just enough bread and water to keep you moving. Your thoughts of the bakery girl and your master's humming tune have faded. Now, your entire world has shrunk to the few feet of ground in front of you, the chafing of the iron on your ankle, and the gnawing emptiness in your stomach. Here's a small, grim detail about Roman logistics you're now experiencing firsthand. Moving people and goods was an arduous process. The famous Roman roads were primarily for military and official state use. For a slave coffler like yours, the route would be secondary tracks, ancient pathways that were cheaper and less likely to attract the attention of a curious magistrate or military patrol. The legality of your situation is murky. Their application in the far-flung provinces could be inconsistent. A provincial governor might turn a blind eye to this kind of illicit trade in exchange for a bribe or simply out of indifference. The academic debate continues on just how much off the books slavery contributed to the Roman economy. But you, with the mud caking your bare feet and the chain biting into your skin, are living proof of its existence. You see glimpses of the world you've lost. You pass a small farmstead where a woman is hanging laundry, her children chasing a chicken in the yard. For a moment her eyes meet yours, and you see a flicker of pity before she quickly turns away, ushering her children inside. She knows not to get involved. You are ghosts, specters of a world she wants no part of. You are a reminder of how fragile safety really is. Finally, the air changes again. You can smell the sea, not the familiar, gentle Aegean of your home, but a saltier, more industrial scent. You hear a new sound, a cacophony of hammering, shouting, and the creaking of countless ropes. You are marched into a major port city. It could be Misenum or Ravenna, the great naval bases of the Roman fleet. The scale of it is overwhelming. The harbor is a forest of masts. Massive warships, triremes and quinqueremes, sit at anchor, their painted eyes staring blankly out to sea. This is not some pirate's hidden cove. This is the heart of Roman naval power. And you, a stolen piece of human machinery, have been brought here to help power it. The long, agonizing journey is over. But as you look at the colossal ships waiting in the harbor, a new, colder dread settles in your heart. The real journey is just about to begin. The noise at the naval base is a physical assault. It's a relentless clang of hammers on anvils from the forges, the rhythmic thud of mallets caulking holes, the shouts of overseers, the screech of gulls fighting over refuse, and the low, constant hum of thousands of men at work. You are herded from the dusty road onto a stone quay, and the sheer, organized chaos of it all is dizzying. Everywhere you look, there are legionaries in their segmented armor. Their presence a clear sign that this is an imperial facility. There are officials in clean tunics carrying wax tablets, striding with purpose, and then there are men like you in chains with the same hollowed-out look in their eyes. You are shoved into a line in a large, open-air pen, not unlike one used for cattle at a market. The air is thick with the smell of unwashed bodies and fear. One by one, you are brought before a man sitting at a simple wooden table. HES not a military officer, HES a civilian contractor, a man SEP's the kind of man who profits from the machinery of the state. HES the middleman, the one who buys human beings from pirates and criminals and sells them, at a tidy profit to the Roman navy. His eyes are cold and appraising. He doesn't see you, the apprentice stonemason. He sees a set of arms, a back, a pair of legs. He is calculating your potential endurance, your horsepower. An assistant, a burly man with hairy arms, roughly grabs you. He forces you to stretch your arms to stretch your back. He runs his hands over your shoulders and thighs, checking for muscle mass. He is assessing your physical worth. The captain who captured you was checking for basic health. This is a more detailed, professional evaluation. The man SEPS makes a note on his wax tablet. He doesn't speak to you. He speaks about you to his assistant in a clipped, dismissive Latin you barely understand. Words like strong back, young, good shoulders. You are a piece of equipment being assessed for procurement. This is the moment your value as a human being is officially translated into a monetary figure. You are weighed not just on a physical scale, but on the scales of commerce and state necessity. This is a key point of the Roman system. It was, in many ways, brutally pragmatic. While we often think of the Roman army as being composed of citizen soldiers, the navy was a different beast entirely. It was seen as less prestigious, and manning the oars of a galley was grueling, dangerous work that few citizens would willingly choose. Therefore, the state relied on various sources to fill the rowing benches. This included prisoners of war, convicted criminals sentenced ad rem to the oar, and, of course, slaves. Historians have long debated the exact proportion of each group. Some argue that the Navy preferred to use free provincials or paid volunteers class, i.e. because they were more motivated, especially in battle. Others argue that for the sheer, grinding work of patrolling and transport, a disposable workforce of slaves and criminals was far more cost-effective. Your presence here in this pen suggests the latter view had a lot of merit in practice. Then comes the branding. It's a hot iron smelling of scorched hair and flesh. The pain is searing, a white-hot agony on your shoulder that makes you scream. But it's over in a second. You now bear the mark of your owner, the Roman Navy. You are state property. Any sliver of hope you had of escaping, of somehow pleading your case, vanishes with the smoke from your own skin. You belong to them now, as surely as the ship you will soon board belongs to them. After the branding, you are given a new name. Or rather, a number. Your old name, the one your mother gave you, the one the bakery girl might have whispered, is gone. It is meaningless here. You are now just a number, another cog in the machine. You are given a coarse, sack-like tunic, barely more than a rag, and a wooden bowl. This is your entire worldly property. Finally, the transaction is complete. The man Seps gets his pouch of coins. The Navy gets its new rower. You are chained together with a new group of men, all branded, all stripped of their identities. You are marched away from the pen towards the docks themselves. The sun is beginning to set, casting long shadows across the quay. The sky is a beautiful, indifferent tapestry of orange and purple. It's the last sunset you will see as a man who can, in theory, walk freely upon the earth. You will belong to the sea, or more accurately, to the wooden shell that floats upon it. You catch the eye of the old farmer you were chained to on the road. HES in a different line now, being led towards a different ship. He gives you a small, almost imperceptible nod. It's not a gesture of hope. It's a gesture of shared damnation, a silent goodbye from one ghost to another. They march you along the stone quay, your bare feet slapping against the grimy, fish-scented surface. The rhythmic clanking of your chains is a new, terrible kind of music. The ships loom over you, their massive wooden hulls smelling of torrent sea salt. They are bigger up close, impossibly so. You are used to the small fishing skiffs of your home village. These are floating fortresses. Their prows are shod with bronze, shaped into the smiling faces of wolves or the fearsome visage of a sea god. Painted eyes stare down at you from either side of the bow, as if judging your worthiness to enter. You stop before one of them. It's a trireme, you hear one of the gods say. 3 banks of oars. A sleek, lethal predator of the sea. It seems to hum with a silent, contained energy. Men are swarming all over its sailors coiling ropes on the upper deck, marines polishing their helmets, officers shouting orders. It's a hive of activity. And you are about to be shoved into its darkest, most crowded chamber. The gangplank is steep and narrow. As you step onto it, the ship shifts slightly, a deep groan echoing from its wooden bones. For the first time, you feel the sea beneath you, a constant, gentle motion that feels alien and unsettling. The guards don't give you a moment to adjust. A rough shove to your back propels you forward, across the main deck. You get a fleeting, disorienting glimpse of the sky, of the forest of masts in the harbor, of the complex web of rigging overhead. It's the last open space you'll see for a very long time. Then you're pushed toward a dark, square hole in the deck. A hatchway, a set of steep, narrow steps leads down into the belly of the ship, and from that opening comes a smell. It's the smell you first caught when you boarded the pirate ship, but 100 times stronger. It's a thick, gagging stench of stale sweat, urine, feces, vomit, and unwashed bodies, all mingling with the damp, musty odor of the bilge water below. It's the concentrated smell of human misery, and it hits you like a physical blow. You recoil, but the guard behind you gives you another shove. "Descendee," he growls, "go down." You have no choice. You descend, your eyes struggling to adjust to the gloom. The air grows warmer, heavier, more suffocating with each step. The world of sun and fresh air is gone, replaced by a dim, lantern-lit cavern that seems to stretch the entire length of the ship. This is the rowing deck. This is your new home. On either side of a narrow central walkway, there are benches. 3 tiers of them, staggered one above the other. And on every bench sits a man, or the ghost of a man. They are gaunt, their ribs starkly visible. Their bodies are covered in sores and scars. Their heads are shaved, and their eyes are dull and listless. They are chained to the benches, their ankles and wrists shackled to the very timbers of the ship. They look up as you and the other new arrivals are herded in, but there's no curiosity in their gaze, just a profound, soul-deep weariness. They've seen this 100 times. New fish, fresh meat for the grinder. The sheer number of them is shocking. A Roman trireme could have up to 170 rowers. Packed into this tight, enclosed space, it creates a claustrophobic human tapestry. Here's a small, often misunderstood fact: the Hollywood image of a single, massive hold with all the rowers in one big space is not entirely accurate. On a trireme, the rowers' remides were arranged in 3 tiers. The top tier, The Trireme knights had the longest doors and the hardest job, but also got the most air from the open or port. The middle tier were the Zygites and the lowest. The Tholemites were in the darkest, most poorly ventilated part of the ship, practically sitting in the bilge. The question of how these three banks of oars were arranged without interfering with each other is a puzzle that naval historians and archaeologists still debate passionately. Some models propose a staggered, overlapping seating arrangement, while others suggest a more direct vertical alignment within an outrigger structure. The academic debate is irrelevant. The reality is this suffocating crowded space. You are led to an empty spot on a bench in the middle tier. Zygites, you can see a small, round port a few feet away, a circle of grey light that promises a sliver of the outside world. It offers no comfort. The overseer, a hulking brute with a whip coiled over his shoulder, directs a ship's smith to secure you. The smith works with an indifferent efficiency. He hammers a pin into your ankle shackle, binding you to a thick iron ring bolted to the floor, leaving just enough chain for you to handle the oar. The finality of it is absolute. The cold iron is a full stop at the end of the sentence that was your freedom. You are now, quite literally, a part of the ship. You are bolted to its frame. You will eat here, you will eat here, you will sleep here, you will relieve yourself here. And, in all likelihood, you will die here. You look at the man next to you. His face is a roadmap of scars, his eyes are vacant. He doesn't look at you. He just stares at the wooden wall in front of him, as if he's been staring at it for 1,000 years. The ship rocks gently, a cradle of despair. This is it. This is the beginning and the end. The sound of the hammer striking the pin of your shackle echoes in the cramped space. A sound of finality. It's not a loud, dramatic clang like in the forges on the quay. It's a dull, dense thud that seems to be absorbed by the wood and the bodies around you. With that last strike, the world shrinks to the length of a few feet of iron chain. You pull at it, a futile, instinctive gesture. The iron bites into your skin, cold and unyielding. You are sitting on a rough wooden plank, your bench. It's already worn smooth and dark in the places where countless bodies have sat before you. You can feel the grain of the wood through your thin tunic. Your feet rest on a lower beam, and in front of you is the loom of a massive oar. It rests in its port, a round hole cut through the hull, its handle extending back to your station. It's a monstrous thing, a huge pole of fir or beechwood, far heavier and more awkward than you could have imagined. It feels less like a tool and more like a tether to a life of misery. The man next to you, the one with the vacant eyes, finally turns his head. He doesn't speak. He just looks at your fresh, uncalloused hands, then at your relatively clean tunic, and a tiny, almost imperceptible sneer crosses his lips. It's not malice. It's the weary contempt of a veteran for a new recruit who has no idea what's coming. He has seen dozens like you arrive, full of a fear that hasn't yet curdled into pure, robotic exhaustion. The overseer, whose title is Horted or walks the central gangway, he is the conductor of this orchestra of pain. He carries no drum, not yet. His presence alone is enough to maintain a tense silence. He stops near your bench and barks an order. The veteran next to you, without a word, demonstrates. He leans forward, his body moving with a practiced, fluid economy of motion. He grips the oar's handle, his hands calloused and misshapen from years of this single, repeated movement, then pulls back, his entire body a lever. You, the Horted or grunts, pointing at you. You try to mimic the movement. It's clumsy. The oar is incredibly heavy. Just lifting it to the correct angle makes your arms and back scream in protest. The handle is rough and splinters dig into your soft palms. You are astonymous and you're strong, but this is a different kind of strength. It's not about power, it's about a relentless, grinding endurance you do not possess. The Horted or watches. You struggle for a moment, a look of disgust on his face. He doesn't strike you. Not yet. The real training will begin when you are at sea. For now, you are just another piece of squeaky, unoiled machinery. Herein lies one of the great historical misconceptions, popularized by films like Ben-Hur. The idea that all galley rowers were slaves chained to the oar is a powerful image. But the reality was more complex. As mentioned, the Roman Navy used a mix of personnel. Criminals, prisoners of war, and purchased slaves like yourself were certainly a major component, especially on the larger warships during the High Empire. These were the men who would be chained, especially smaller patrol boats, Liburnians, or during the early Republican period. A significant portion of the rowers were free men class IRE provincials who enlisted for pay and the promise of citizenship after their term of service, which was a grueling 26 years. These men would not have been chained. The debate among historians centers on the proportions and the time periods. Were chained slaves the norm or the exception? The evidence is fragmentary, often relying on interpreting legal texts or the occasional shipwreck discovery. But for you on this trireme, part of a massive naval fleet, the debate is moot. The cold iron around your ankle is your truth. You spend the rest of the day in a state of suspended shock. You sit on the bench, the chain a constant, dull weight. The air is thick and hard to breathe. The dim light from the scattered oil lamps casts long, dancing shadows, making the cramped space feel even more phantasmous. The only real light comes from the ports, those small circles of life. Through yours, you can see a sliver of another ship's hull, and occasionally, the flash of a seabird's wing, cruel glimpse of a world you have been violently severed from. As dusk falls, the world outside your port turns from grey to black. The activity on the upper deck quiets down. A different routine begins below. A foul-smelling gruel, a thin porridge of barley or millet, is swapped into your wooden bowl. It's bland and lukewarm, but you eat it ravenously. It's the first thing you've eaten since the bread and cheese in that other life. The veteran next to you eats with a slow, mechanical rhythm, not spilling a drop. You, in your haste, manage to swap some on your tunic. He gives you that same look of contempt. Wasted food is a sin here. After the meal, there is nowhere to go. You simply slump against the bench, trying to find a position to sleep. But sleep is impossible. The wood is hard, the chains dig into you, and the man on the bench behind you snores with a wet, rattling sound. The ship groans and creaks around you. Men cough, moan in their sleep, and whisper to themselves in languages you don't understand. It's a symphony of despair. You close your eyes and try to summon the image of the sun on the cobblestones of your home, but the image is fading, obscured by the oppressive darkness, the suffocating stench, and the inescapable cold of the iron. You don't know if you slept. Perhaps you drifted into a state of shallow, anxious stupor, but true rest is impossible. The signal to wake up isn't a sound, but a change in the ship's rhythm. A new sense of purpose ripples through the vessel. You hear the sharp, clipped commands of officers from the deck above, the thud of sailors' feet, the creak of the massive steering oars being tested. The beast is waking up, and you are one of its muscles. The Hortator and his assistants walk the central gangway. This time he carries a small, two-headed mallet and stands beside a large, suspended block of wood. The assistants carry whips, not coiled casually over their shoulders anymore, but held loosely, ready for use. A tense anticipation fills the rowing deck. The veterans are silent, their faces grim. They know what is coming. The Hortator doesn't give a speech. He doesn't need to. He simply strikes the block of wood with his mallet. TOC, the sound is sharp, clear, and absolute. It cuts through the low hum of the ship. At the signal, the veteran next to you and all the other experienced rowers lean forward in unison, as if they are a single organism. TOC, he strikes it again. On this second beat, they dip their oar blades into the water. You can't see it, but you can feel it, a subtle shift in the ship's balance as over 100 blades catch the sea. TOC, the third beat. The pull with a collective grunt that is exhaled through clenched teeth they heave. Their bodies strain, muscles bunching under scarred skin. The entire ship seems to surge forward with a slight jolt. TOC, the fourth beat. The recovery. They push the oar forward again, preparing for the next stroke. Forward. Dip. Pull. Recover. Talk. 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 This is the rhythm of your new life. The portcullis, the mallet, dictates your every move. You try to follow along. You lean forward, but your eat is slow. By the time you've dipped your oar, the others are already pulling. Your oar, out of sync, slaps uselessly against the water and is nearly ripped from your hands by the ship's momentum. The jolt sends a shockwave up your arms that rattles your teeth. The man behind you curses, his oar clashing with yours. Crack, the whip lands on your back. The pain is a sudden blinding fire. It's not like the brand that's sharp and cutting. You cry out, arching your back. Keep the time, maggot. The horse at or roars. His voice is a part of the rhythm now, a human counterpoint to the relentless beat of the mallet. You scramble to find the rhythm again, tears of pain and frustration blurring your vision. Forward, dip, pull, recover. You focus everything on the man next to you. You try to mirror his movements exactly. His motion is a perfect, efficient loop, honed by countless hours of this exact torture. Your movements are a clumsy, panicked scramble. Your muscles already screaming. Your palms are on fire, the splinters from the oar handle grinding into the flesh. Sweat pours down your face, stinging your eyes. This is the core of the galley's power synchronization. A single rower is nothing. But 170 rowers pulling in perfect concert can turn a ship into a weapon. They can make it surge forward to ram an enemy vessel, or execute a sharp turn to outmaneuver a pirate ship. The Hortator wasn't just an overseer, he was a musician of a very specific, brutal kind. Sometimes, instead of a mallet, or piper symphonius would play a flute or pipe to set the pace. It sounds almost poetic, but the reality was anything but. A simple, hypnotic tune would drill the rhythm into the rowers' minds, making their actions automatic, bypassing conscious thought, whether by mallet or by flute. The goal was the same: to turn 100 individuals into a single, unified engine. There's a curious academic question here: how did they communicate complex commands? Simple speed changes were easy, just increase the tempo. But what about turning to turn the ship? One side had to row while the other held their oar steady, or even rowed backward. How were these orders transmitted over the din? Historians speculate about different drum beats, verbal commands shouted down the line, or even a system of hand signals from the Hort for the men at the oars. It would have been a language learned through pain and repetition until the response was instantaneous. Your body is a symphony of agony. Your lower back feels like it's being torn in two. Your shoulders are on fire. Your hands are raw and bleeding. The salt from the spray that comes into the oar port turning the wounds into a special kind of torment. You try to keep up, driven by the fear of the whip. But exhaustion is a tide, and it's pulling you under. Your movements become sluggish. You miss a stroke. Crack, the whip finds your back again in the exact same spot. The pain is so intense you almost let go of the oar. Don't let go. You know, instinctively, that letting go is the worst thing you can do. The oar would flail wildly, injuring the men around you, and the punishment for that would be far, far worse. You grit your teeth, the taste of blood in your mouth where you bit your tongue. You pull again. The world outside the ship disappears. The past is a forgotten dream. The future is just the next stroke. There is only the damp, stinking air, the feel of the rough wood, the screaming of your muscles, and the relentless, soul-crushing beat of the mallet. Talk, 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 talk. It's the new ticking of your heart. The ship has been moving for hours. The relentless beat of the mallet has burrowed into your skull, a permanent, throbbing pulse that seems to govern your very breathing. Your body has gone past the point of sharp, specific pains and has settled into a single, all-encompassing ache. Your mind, in a desperate act of self-preservation, has started to detach. You are a machine made of flesh, and your only function is to pull. Now that the immediate terror of learning the rhythm has subsided into a dull, repetitive agony, your other senses begin to register the full horror of your environment. You are living inside a symphony, but it is a symphony composed by a madman. The lead instrument is the porter's colours, the mallet, its beat and wavering. The percussion section is the groaning and creaking of the ship's timbers, the constant reminder that you are encased in a wooden shell held together by torrent nails, floating on an abyss. Every swell of the sea adds a new layer, a deep mournful sigh from the hull as it strains against the water. Then there is the human orchestra. With every pulse stroke, 170 men let out a collective, guttural grunt. It's not a shout of effort, it's the sound of bodies being pushed beyond their limits. The air forced from their lungs. It's a low, desperate chorus that rises and falls with the rhythm. Layered on top of this are the individual sounds of suffering, the wet, hacking cough of the man in the tier below you, the quiet, incessant weeping of a young boy a few benches down, the muttering of a man who has lost his mind and is having a conversation with someone who isn't there. And the smell. Oh, the smell. It has graduated from being an assault to being the very air you breathe, the medium in which you exist. The initial shock has worn off, replaced by a permanent saturation. You can taste the ammonia from the urine that sloshes in the bilge, just a few feet below the lowest tier of rowers. You can feel the greasy film of sweat on your skin, on the oar, on the bench. The lack of any sanitation facilities is a brutal, practical reality. You relieve yourself or use it. A shallow trough-like channel runs beneath the benches, designed to carry the waste to the bilge, but it's inefficient and constantly overflowing. The stench is a physical presence, a thick, cloying blanket that you can never escape. A small, morbid detail of ship life was the constant battle against pests. This environment was a paradise for rats, lice, and fleas. You can feel them. A persistent itching on your scalp, a scurrying you glimpse out of the corner of your eye in the dim lamplight. They are your constant companions, feasting on the filth and, in turn, on you. Disease was a far greater killer on these ships than battle. A single sick man could infect an entire rowing deck in a matter of days. Dysentery, typhus, skin infections, they would sweep through the packed ranks with terrifying speed. The man next to you, the veteran, seems immune to it all. He rows with a detached, almost meditative focus. He is a part of this environment shaped by it. He has learned to conserve every ounce of energy, his movements precise and minimal. He wastes nothing. Not motion, not emotion. You watch him, and you realize that this is the only way to survive, to shut down, to become as hard and unfeeling as the wooden iron that surrounds you. At one point, the rowing stops. The mallet falls silent. The sudden quiet is more jarring than the noise. Your ears ring. For a blessed moment, you can just sit, your chest heaving, your muscles trembling with exhaustion. But there is no rest. An order is shouted from above. Change of watch for the sailors and marines. For you, it's mealtime. An assistant to the hall-door comes down the gangway with a bucket of water and a bucket of the same grey gruel. He slushes a ladle full of water directly into your cupped, bleeding hands. You drink it frantically, the lukewarm, slightly brackish water, the most delicious thing you have ever tasted. Then the gruel is slopped into your bowl. You eat it with the same mechanical efficiency as the veteran next to you, your body screaming for any kind of fuel. The academic world still discusses the diet of a Roman rower. It would have been calorie-dense but nutritionally poor, consisting mainly of grains, panis, navel ears or ship's biscuit, a rock-hard, twice-baked bread, gruel, and maybe some sour wine mixed with water posse to kill the bacteria. It was fuel, not food. The goal was to provide just enough energy for the work without wasting precious cargo space on quality provisions. Your life expectancy, and thus the need for a balanced diet, was not a primary concern. The break is short, maybe 15 minutes. Then the mallet starts its beat again. TOC, you lean forward. Your body screams in protest. You have to force it to mentally disconnect from the pain. TOC, you dip the oar. TOC, you pull. The symphony begins anew, the grunting men, the coughing, the weeping. You are just one instrument among many, lost in the cacophony. You look through your oar-port, the sky. You have rowed the sun out of the sky. And as you pull, and as you pull, and pull, you realize with a sickening certainty that you will do the same thing tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. Days bleed into one another, distinguished only by the cycle of agonizing labor and brief, inadequate rest. Your world has been reduced to the 3 feet of space around your bench. The concepts of morning, noon, and night are abstract, marked only by the quality of light filtering through the oar-port. A bright, sharp circle means midday sun is beating down on the hull. A soft, grey luminescence means dawn or dusk. A sliver of silver means the moon is out. Your body is changing. The soft skin of a sternomason's apprentice is gone. Your hands are a mess of blisters that have broken, bled, and are now slowly, tortuously hardening into calluses. The splinters are still there, embedded deep in the flesh, a source of constant, low-grade pain. Your back and shoulders once perpetuous state of chronic, deep-seated ache that you no longer even notice, the way one stops noticing a constant noise. You are getting stronger, but it is a gaunt, weary strength, born not of health but of relentless, repetitive strain. You are being sculpted by the ore. Food and water have become the absolute center of your existence. The arrival of the gruel bucket is the most significant event of your day. You have learned to eat it like the veteran, slowly and deliberately, using your fingers to scrape every last smear from the wooden bowl. You cradle your water ration, sipping it slowly to make it last, feeling the precious liquid soothe your raw throat. The food itself is a testament to Roman military logistics, brutally efficient and utterly joyless. The main staple is navel is the infamous hardtack. It's a simple flour and water biscuit, baked twice to remove all moisture so it wouldn't spoil on long voyages. It's so hard you can't bite into it directly. You have to soak it in your water ration, creating a disgusting, soggy mush that is nonetheless vital for survival. Sometimes, the gruel has a few beans or lentils in it, a moment of culinary excitement. On very rare occasions, you can smell fish being cooked for the officers and marines on the upper deck, a tantalizing aroma that feels like a form of psychological torture. Dehydration is your constant, silent enemy. The heat in the rowing deck is oppressive, a damped, stagnant furnace. You sweat constantly, losing precious water and salt. The water ration is never enough. You are always thirsty. Your lips are chapped, your tongue feels thick in your mouth, and you sometimes feel dizzy from the lack of fluid. Men who succumb to heat stroke are simply unchained and dragged away. You don't know where they go. You just know their spot on the bench is filled by a new man at the next port. This brings us to a rather gruesome, little-known aspect of life at sea, the ASTUMA large barrel of cheap, sour wine or vinegar water Porsche would be kept on board. It wasn't for drinking pleasure. The acidity helped to kill bacteria in the water stored in wooden casks, making it safer to drink. It was also doled out to the rowers. The sharp, vinegary taste was unpleasant, but it cut through the thirst and was believed to prevent scurvy, though the Romans didn't understand the science of vitamins. Historians still debate how effective this truly was, and whether it was a standard provision or a luxury. For you, the arrival of the vinegar water ladle is a moment of conflicted relief. It's foul tasting, but it's liquid, and it might just keep you alive for another day. One day, you see a man a few benches down refuses food. His eyes are glassy, his skin unnaturally pale. He just sits there, staring blankly, while the gruel congeals in his bowl. The veteran next to you notices. He doesn't say a word, but he watches the man with a clinical detachment. Later that night, as you're all trying to find some semblance of sleep on the benches, the sick man begins to tremble violently. No one calls for a guard. There is no medic here. To show weakness is to invite removal. To help a sick man is to risk catching his illness. So the entire deck pretends not to notice. They listen to his labored breathing, to his quiet moans, each man wrapped in his own bubble of misery, hoping the sickness doesn't jump to him next. By the time the mallet starts its rhythm the next morning, the man is still. He is slumped over his oar, his body cold. The halted oar on his morning inspection sees him immediately. He shows no emotion. He simply gestures to two of his assistants. They come, unlock the man's chains with practiced ease, and drag the body down the central gangway. It's done with a quiet efficiency that is more chilling than any violence. There is no ceremony, no moment of silence. He is just gone. A few hours later, at the change of the sailor's watch, you hear a faint splash from the side of the ship. That's his funeral. A moment later, two guards appear, shoving a new man, terrified and bewildered, down the steps. They chain him to the empty bench. The machine has replaced a broken part. The symphony continues, its ranks replenished, and you pull on your throat tight with something more than just thirst. You've been on the ship long enough to lose track of the weeks. The initial shock has worn off, replaced by a monotonous, grinding reality. You've learned that survival here is not just about physical endurance. It's about understanding the complex, unspoken social order of the rowing deck. This subterranean world has its own hierarchy, its own currency, and its own brutal laws. The top of the food chain, paradoxically, are the veterans like the man next to you. They aren't formally in charge, but they command a grudging respect. They know the rhythms not just of the oar, but of the ship. They can tell by the way the hull creaks if a storm is coming. They know which guards are lazy and which are sadistic. They have carved out a tiny sphere of existence through sheer resilience. They get the slightly better positions on the bench, the ones less likely to be splashed by filth from the channels. They have learned to sleep in impossibly contorted positions that actually provide some rest. Newcomers like you are at the absolute bottom. You are clumsy, you are weak, and you are expendable. The currency of this world is not coins, it's favors. And the most valuable commodity is information. The veteran next to you, whose name you learn is Gaius, not his real name, but the one he was given, he occasionally speaks. His words are rare and precious. One day, he sees you struggling to wrap a piece of your ragged tunic around your bleeding palm. He lets out a sigh of exasperation and, in a low grunt, tells you to use the grease. Grease, you ask. He just jerks his head towards the mechanism of the oar port. There's a leather sleeve, and is comma meant to stop water from splashing in. It's greased with animal fat to keep its uphaul. It's disgusting, but he shows you how to scrape a tiny amount off with your thumbnail and rub it into the rostals on your hands. It provides a thin, protective layer and slightly dulls the pain. It's a revelation. A piece of forbidden knowledge. This is a strange, often overlooked aspect of this life, the ingenuity of the oppressed. Chained and watched, the rowers still found ways to create, to adapt. They might sharpen a piece of bone into a needle to stitch their rags, or weave threads pulled from their tunics into a small cord. Historians can only speculate on these tiny acts of agency, as they leave no archaeological record. It's the invisible history of people trying to retain a sliver of humanity in the most inhuman of conditions. Did they have a secret slang? Did they pass stories down the benches in whispers? We can only guess, but it's almost certain that a subculture, however grim, existed in the darkness. You learn other rules. Never make eye contact with the halted, or never speak unless spoken to. Never draw attention to yourself for good or for ill. If a man near you is being flogged, you look straight ahead and you row. His pain is not your concern, becoming part of his drama is a death sentence. There's a pecking order for everything. When the water ladle comes around, the veterans implicitly get the first sips from the top of the bucket. Where the water is cleanest, the newest arrivals get the dregs. If a piece of hardtack is dropped, it belongs to whoever is quickest and strongest, or whoever has the most intimidating allies on the bench. Small, informal gangs form. Men from the same original province might stick together, sharing information or protecting each other from the worst of the bullying. You, a stolen boy from Anatolia, have no one. Your alliance for now is a silent, one-sided one with Gaius. You learn from his example, and in return you don't annoy him. It's a purely transactional relationship. One day, a fight breaks out. It's not a dramatic brawl. It's a sudden, vicious explosion of violence. A few benches ahead, two men, their faces contorted with rage, are trying to kill each other over a stolen piece of bread. They are clumsy and hampered by their chains, but their intent is murderous. They claw and bite, their grunts of pain and fury a stark contrast to the usual monotonous sounds of the deck. The guards are on them in an instant. They don't try to break it up. They simply beat both men into unconsciousness with wooden clubs. It's swift, brutal, and terrifyingly efficient. The two bloody, unmoving bodies are dragged away. To more empty spots on the benches. To more splashes you'll hear later. The lesson is clear: conflict is inefficient. The system does not tolerate it. Your anger, your despair, your hatred, it all has to be channeled into one single outlet, the oar. You must pour your frustrations into the sea. You learn to be invisible. You learn to be silent. You learn to watch. You see the subtle power dynamics, the shifting allegiances, the quiet acts of desperation. You see a man trade his entire gruel ration for a small piece of leather to patch his shoe. You see another man, driven mad by thirst, try to lick the condensation off the cold iron of his shackles. You are a student in the most brutal school in the world, and the only passing grade is survival. The Hortator is the sun around which your miserable planet revolves. His name is Cassius, you learn from whispers. He is a constant, menacing presence on the central gangway. He is not just a guard, he is the embodiment of the system that has imprisoned you. His shadow falling over your bench is enough to make your heart hammer against your ribs and your palms sweat. He rarely raises his voice. He doesn't need to. His power is absolute, and everyone knows it. His movements are economical and deliberate. When he walks, his heavy leather sandals make a soft, rhythmic slapping sound on the wooden gangway. That sound becomes a harbinger of potential pain, more terrifying than any shout. You learn to track his position without looking, using only your hearing. You know when HES at the bow, when HES midship, and when HES approaching your section. His primary tool of enforcement is the whip. It's a flagrum, not a simple lash, but a short, stout handle with several strips of leather attached, sometimes embedded with small pieces of metal or bone. It's designed to inflict maximum pain without necessarily causing a disabling injury. A clean slice from a sword would be inefficient. It would ruin a valuable piece of rowing machinery. The flagrum, however, delivers a shallow, tearing agony that motivates, but doesn't immediately destroy. It's a tool of performance management. You live in fear of the whip, but you also learn its language. There is the sharp attention-getting crack in the air, a warning shot. There is the quick, stinging lash for a minor infraction, like being slow on the uptake of a new rhythm. And then there is the full, deliberate flogging, reserved for more serious offenses like fighting or open defiance. This is a ritual. The offender is sometimes hauled to the central gangway, chained to a post, and beaten in front of everyone. It's a lesson, and you are the terrified audience. But Cassius is more than just a brute with a whip. He is a master of psychological warfare. He has favorites, not in a kind way, but in a way that breeds suspicion and paranoia. He might give an extra half ladle of water to one man, for no apparent reason. That man is then watched by all the others. Is he an informant? What did he do to earn that favor? It sows discord, breaking down potential alliances, ensuring the rowers are too busy being suspicious of each other to ever think of uniting. Here's a small, chilling detail from Roman military practice: the role of the centurion. A centurion in a legion was famous for his vetus, a short vine staff that was his badge of office and his primary tool for discipline. The hortator is the naval equivalent, and his whip is his vetus, but while a centurion was also expected to lead his men by example in battle, the hortator had to extract labor. There was no bond of brotherhood, no shared glory. He was not their leader, he was their driver. This fundamental difference in relationship is key to understanding the sheer misery of your position. The legionary feared his centurion, but also respected him. You only fear. The academic world sometimes debates the precise nature of these overseers. Were they career naval officers, NCOS like a legionary optio, or civilian contractors hired for their specific, brutal skills? The answer is likely all of the above, depending on the era and the type of ship. Some may have been former rowers themselves, men who had survived the war and were promoted to a position of authority, a grim sort of career ladder. This would make them particularly effective, as they would know every trick, every sign of weakness, every nuance of this dark world. Cassius has the look of such a man. His face is weathered, and he walks with a slight limp, as if he remembers the feel of the bench all too well. One day, the man on the bench in front of you, a scrawny boy from Gaul, simply gives up. His oar stroke becomes weak, listless. The whip cracks, but he barely flinches. He just continues his slow, useless motion. He has reached his breaking point. Cassius stops. The entire section holds its breath. Cassius doesn't flog the boy. He does something in his ear. You can't hear the words, but you see the boy's eyes widen in sheer terror. He starts rowing again, frantically, with a desperate, panicked energy you've never seen from him before. He rose with the strength of a man who has been shown a glimpse of a fate far worse than the whip. What did Cassius say? You never find out. The other rowers speculate in hushed tones later. Did he threaten to cut his rations to have him assigned to bilge cleaning duty for a month? Well, in detail, what would happen to him if he were transferred to the mines in Numidia? The uncertainty is the point. The unknown threat is always more powerful than the known one. You learn that the truest horror of the Hortator isn't the physical pain he can inflict. It's the absolute and total power he holds over every aspect of your life and death. He is the dispenser of food, the arbiter of pain, and the master of your fear. The whip in his hand is just a symbol of the crushing, inescapable weight of his authority. You don't just row to avoid the lash. You row to avoid his attention, to become a faceless, nameless part of the machine, to disappear into the rhythm and pray that his shadow never falls on you again. The world of the rowing deck is a world without time. The sun and moon, glimpsed through the oar-port, are your only calendar, but even they begin to lose their meaning. The rising and setting are just abstract events happening in a world that is measured in strokes. It is measured in the agonizingly long intervals between water rations. It is measured in the shifts of the sailors above. Their footsteps on the deck a signal for a brief pause in your torment. You exist in a perpetual twilight, a dim, hazy gloom lit by the flickering, smoky oil lamps. These lamps are your nemesis. They provide just enough light for the Hortator to see you, but not enough to offer any comfort. They stink of cheap, rancid oil, adding another layer to the already foul air. At night, most of them are extinguished, plunging the deck into a near total darkness. But the darkness offers no peace. It is a thick, suffocating blackness, filled with the sounds of other men's misery. Sleep is not a state you enter, but a prize you fight for. You cannot lie down. You are chained upright to your bench. You learn to sleep sitting up, your head lolling onto your chest or slumped against the shoulder of the man next to you. It's a grotesque intimacy, born of shared suffering. You sleep in short, frantic bursts of maybe 20 or 30 minutes, jerking awake at the slightest sound, a rat skittering past, a guard's footstep, a man crying out in a nightmare. This constant sleep deprivation grinds you down as surely as the oar does. Your thoughts become frayed and indistinct. Memories of your past life, the sharp smell of cut marble, the taste of fresh figs now feel like they belong to someone else. They are scenes from a story you were told long ago. Sometimes, in the moments between waking and sleeping, you hallucinate. You might see the face of the bakery girl in the grain of the wood in front of you, only to have it dissolve into a knot of timber. You might hear the master's humming tune, but it warps into the rhythmic creak of the hull. This is a deliberate, if unspoken, part of the system. An exhausted man is a compliant man. A man who cannot think clearly is a man who cannot plan, cannot hope, cannot rebel. Your fatigue is a tool of control as effective as any chain or whip. The Romans, masters of practical psychology, understood this well. The grueling march schedules for their legions were designed, not just to cover ground, but to break down the individual recruit's will and forge him into a compliant part of a unit. The same principle applies here, but in a far more brutal, condensed form. A weird, little-known phenomenon of this life is the oar dream. Even when you do manage to fall into a deeper sleep, the rhythm is burned into your very being. You dream of rowing. Your body twitches in your sleep, mimicking the push and pull of the oar. You are rowing even when you are unconscious. You wake up feeling as if you haven't rested at all, your muscles still aching with the phantom strain of the oar. It's a level of exhaustion that permeates your subconscious. Sometimes the ship is still for a whole day, anchored in a calm bay perhaps. The mallet is silent. The silence is a physical presence, a heavy blanket that is almost as unsettling as the noise. On these days, you are not allowed to rest. This is when maintenance happens. You are given course and forced to scrub the grimy wood of your bench and the walkway around you. It's a futile task, like trying to clean a pigsty with a handkerchief, but it is work. It prevents the ultimate crime idleness. During one of these cleaning sessions, you notice something you hadn't seen before. Scratched into the back of the bench in front of you, almost invisible in the dim light, are marks. A series of vertical lines with a diagonal line crossing every fourth one. A tally. Someone was counting the days, or the weeks, or the full moons. You run your fingers over them. They are worn smooth. How long ago were they made? Who was the man who sat on your bench, so desperate to hold on to the passage of time that he risked a flogging to scratch this secret calendar into the wood? The question of literacy among rowers is a fascinating one for historians. While most slaves would have been illiterate, a man like you, a skilled apprentice, might have had basic literacy. Some graffiti found at Pompeii and other sites show that even lower classes of society could read and write to some degree. It's debated whether this skill would have been a comfort or a curse in this environment. Would the ability to read a smuggled scrap of parchment be a priceless link to the outside world, or a painful reminder of all you had lost? You look at the tally marks again. The man who made them is long gone. Did he die on this bench, or did he somehow, miraculously, survive his term? You'll never know. You think about adding your own mark, a single line to represent today. A small act of defiance. I am still here. I am still here. I am still here. I am counting. But you don't. The risk is too great. The Hortador could see it. It's better to be timeless, to float in this endless grey present, to forget you are a man who once had days to count. Your body, which you once took for granted, is now an landscape of slow-motion decay. It's a constant battle against an army of small, relentless enemies: friction, salt, filth, and hunger. The calluses on your hands, which you thought were a form of protection, have begun to crack. The deep fissures sting with sweat and salt water, and you live in constant fear of infection. The real war, however, is being waged on the rest of your skin. You are always damp, either from your own sweat, the humidity, or the spray that comes in through your port. Your rough sackcloth tunic is perpetually wet, and it chafes your skin raw. Great, angry red patches have appeared on your shoulders, your lower back, and on your thighs where they rub against the hardwood of the bench. These are no mere rashes, they are open sores, a constant burning misery. Your tunic dries slightly, unsticks to the weeping wounds. In the morning, when you start to move again, it rips the newly formed scabs away, starting the cycle of pain all over again. Gaius, your veteran neighbor, sees you wincing. In a rare moment of what might be pity, he imparts another piece of survival lore. He points with his chin towards the barrel of pors a, the sour vinegar water that sits at the end of the gangway. When they fill it, he mutters, "Dip a rag," for the sores. The acidity, he explains, helps to clean them on, toughens the skin. The next time the barrel is refilled, you manage to discreetly dip the corner of your tunic in it. The sting when you apply the vinegar to your open sores is breathtaking, a white-hot agony that makes you bite down on your lip to keep from crying out. But Gaius was right. After a few days of this excruciating treatment, the sores begin to look less angry, the weeping subsides, and they start to form a tough, leathery scar tissue. It's another small, ugly victory in the war for survival. This grim reality of skin ailments was a universal problem for sailors in the ancient world. They didn't have modern antiseptics or waterproof clothing. The Romans, however, were pioneers in some aspects of military medicine. Legionary forts had sophisticated hospitals, valet, Udinaria with dedicated medical staff. But the navy was the neglected child of the military. It's a subject of much historical debate whether naval vessels of this size had a dedicated physician medicus on board. Their attention would have been focused on the valuable officers and marines on the upper deck, not the disposable engines below. Your health is your own responsibility, and your pharmacy consists of vinegar, grease, and grim determination. Disease is a constant, invisible passenger on the ship. The close quarters, the filth, and the malnutrition make the rowing deck a perfect breeding ground for sickness. You see men waste away from dysentery, a bloody, dehydrating affliction that is a death sentence in this environment. You see fevers sweep through a section of the bench, leaving men shaking and delirious. The only medical intervention is removal. If you become too sick to row, you are removed. One of the most feared and least understood ailments is what the men call bench rot. It starts with a swelling of the gums and a loosening of the teeth. Small bruises appear on the skin for no reason. Old scars, even the brand on your shoulder, begin to ache and to break open again. It's a slow, insidious decay from the inside out. We now know this is scurvy, a deficiency of vitamin C. The Romans had no concept of vitamins, but they knew this sickness plagued men on long voyages. The pause might have helped a little, as might have occasional access to fresh greens when in port. But for men like you, confined to the deck, a balanced diet was an impossible luxury. You chew your hardtack and pray your teeth don't start to wobble. The psychological toll is just as severe as the physical. You see men crack, not in loud, dramatic ways, but in quiet, terrifying ones. A man starts talking to his oar, whispering to it, encouraging it. Another simply stops blinking, his eyes fixed in a wide, unseeing stare. These men are dangerous, because their unpredictability threatens the rhythm. They are usually dealt with swiftly by the guard. You cling to sanity by focusing on the smallest things. The way the light from your port makes a moving pattern on the floor. The intricate grain of the wooden bench in front of you. The face of Gaius, a landscape of scars that has become as familiar as your own hand. These tiny anchors are all you have to keep your mind from drifting away on the sea of misery. You are no longer hoping for rescue or escape. You are no longer even hoping for survival in the grand sense. Your entire world, your entire ambition has shrunk to this: to survive the next oar stroke, to earn the next ladle of water, and to prevent your aim completely. After what feels like an eternity at sea, a new energy buzzes through the ship. The rhythm of the oar changes. It becomes steadier, less frantic, a cruising pace. From the deck above, you hear a different kind of shouting, the calls of sailors preparing to make port. You can smell it before you see it to land. It's a complex perfume of wood smoke, baking bread, yard stock, and damp earth. The ship glides into a harbor. Through your oar port, you see something that makes your heart ache: the stone wall of a quay, buildings, people walking. Real people. Merchants in colorful tunics, children chasing dogs, women carrying baskets. They are so close. You could almost shout to them. But you are in a different universe, separated by a few inches of wooden and impassable social chasm. You are a ghost watching the world of the living. The ship docks with a gentle bump. The oars are shipped. The mallet falls silent. The sudden quiet is filled with the cacophony of the city outside. For the rowers, this is a moment of supreme torture. The promise of land is right there, a world of solid ground, fresh food, and clean water, but it is utterly unattainable. You are chained to the ship. You will not be setting foot in this city. This was the standard procedure. When a warship docked for resupply or minor repairs, the rowers were considered a security risk. They were a captive population, and letting them off the ship was an invitation for escape attempts or riots. So you stay in your stinking, suffocating prison while the life of a vibrant Roman port city bustles just a few feet away. You can hear the chatter of different languages, the rumble of carts on cobblestones, the music from a distant tavern. It's a feast for the ears that only highlights the starvation of your soul. Sometimes new supplies are brought on board. You watch as huge amphorae of water and wine, sacks of grain, and baskets of fresh vegetables for the officers are loaded onto the upper deck. The smell of fresh bread or roasting meat wafting down the hatchway is a unique form of cruelty. You and the other rowers will get your standard ration of hardtack and gruel. The proximity to abundance makes your deprivation all the more acute. Here's a small, debated point among historians: was there ever any shore leave for the rowers for the freeborn class? I.e., it's possible they were hauled off the ship under supervision when in a secure naval base. For chained slaves and criminals like you, it's almost unthinkable. However, some scholars suggest that on extremely long stays in port, small, trusted groups might have been used for labor details on the docks. Heavily guarded, of course. This would have been a rare exception, not the rule. The general consensus is that the rowing deck was your entire world, whether at sea or in port. One day, while docked, a new group of men is herded down the hatch. They are replacements for those who have died or been removed. They have the same look of terror and disbelief you once had. You look at their clean tunics, their uncalloused hands, their eyes wide with fear. You feel a flicker of something. It's not pity. It's a strange, grim sense of superiority. You are a veteran now. You are the rules. You look at them the way Gaius first looked at you, with a weary, knowing contempt. The transformation is complete. You are no longer the apprentice stonemason. You are a rower. The presence of the city also brings reminders of the world's structure. You might hear the trumpets of a local magistrate's procession. You might see the gilded eagle standard of a legion marching past on the quay. These are symbols of the immense, unassailable power of Rome, the very power that holds you in this bench. It's a reminder that your situation is not an accident of piracy, it is a state-sanctioned reality. You are a tiny, insignificant component in a vast, ruthless engine of the empire. At night, the sounds of the city change. The boisterous noise of the day gives way to the music and drunken laughter from taverns, the distant sound of a woman singing, the barking of a dog. These sounds of normal life, of joy and companionship, are like daggers. You lie on your bench, chained and filthy, listening to a world you can never rejoin. You cry to welcome the familiar misery of the open sea. At least out there are no reminders. There is only the water, the wood, the whip, and the rhythm. It's a simpler, purer form of hell. You almost long for the mallet to start its beat again, to drown out the sounds of the life you've lost. Life in port, despite the psychological torment, offers one rare and disgusting opportunity: bilge duty. The bilge is the lowest part of the ship's hull, the absolute bottom. It's a dark, foul space where all the filth of the ship collects. Sea water that leaks through the planks, overflowing waste from the rowing deck's channels, spilled food, vomit, and anything else that gets dropped or thrown down ends up here, sloshing around in a thick, toxic soup. While the ship is at sea, the bilge is mostly inaccessible. But when it's stable, it must be cleaned. If left to fester, the acidic sludge can rot the ship's timbers from the inside out, and the fumes can become deadly. This is not a job for the sailors or marines. This is a job for the most expendable members of the crew, the rowers. You are chosen for this duty. It's not a reward. It's not a reward. It's a punishment disguised as a work detail. Perhaps you were spotted looking too long at the city, or maybe it was just your turn. You and a half dozen other men are unchained from your benches, a strange and dizzying feeling after so long. Your legs are weak and unsteady. Guards with spears prod you towards a small, dark hatch in the central gangway you'd never paid much attention to before. Opening the hatch unleashes a wave of stench so powerful, it makes the regular air of the rowing deck seem like a mountain meadow. It's a concentrated, gagging odor of decay that physically repels you. You hesitate, but a sharp poke from a spear convinces you to descend the slimy ladder into the darkness. It's almost pitch black, yet only by a single, heavily shielded lamp that casts long, monstrous shadows. You are standing ankle-deep in a cold, viscous liquid. The floor is slick and treacherous. The air is so thick with noxious fumes that it's hard to breathe. Your job is simple and horrific. You are given wooden buckets, and you are to scoop up the sludge and pass it up in a chain to be dumped overboard. It is the most disgusting work you have ever imagined. The sludge is full of unit unfightable solids, and the smell is an entity in itself. You gag repeatedly, trying not to vomit into the very filth you are trying to remove. But as you work, a strange thing happens. This descent into the absolute bowels of the ship provides an unexpected, paradoxical form of relief. For one, you are off the bench. You are standing, moving your body in a different way. The simple act of using different muscles is a strange kind of liberation. You are also, for a brief time, out from under the direct, watchful eye of the Horta or eye of the Hort, utter up at the hatch, unwilling to descend into the filth with you. Down here, in the suffocating dark, there is a bizarre sense of autonomy. You can speak to the men around you in low whispers without fear of the whip. The conversations are not about escape, they are practical. Watch your step here. Pass the bucket. It's a grim form of teamwork, a shared task that builds a fleeting, momentary bond. This is where you might find things. A small, overlooked detail of nautical archaeology is the analysis of bilge contents from ancient shipwrecks. What they find is a treasure trove of everyday life: lost coins, gaming pieces, broken pottery, animal bones from meals. For you, The finds are more personal. You might see a waterlogged leather sandal, lost by a sailor, or a small, carved wooden bird, perhaps a good luck by a previous rower. These are artifacts from other lives, other stories that ended up in the same forgotten place as you. The most coveted find, a rat. If you can catch and kill one, it's a source of fresh protein, a grim but valuable prize to be cooked later over a carefully shielded, illicit flame, or eaten raw by the truly desperate. The most valuable aspect of bilge duty, however, is the fresh air. After hours in the suffocating bilge, when you finally ascend back to the rowing deck, the merely disgusting air of your home bench smells, for a few glorious minutes, almost clean. It's a recalibration of your senses, a reminder that everything is relative. The horror of the bilge makes the horror of the bench momentarily bearable. This is your release, your shore leave. Not a walk in a bustling city, but a few hours spent knee-deep in the collected waste of several hundred men. You are filthy, you stink more than ever, and you have touched things you will see in your nightmares, but you have also been unshamed. You have stood and stretched. You have spoken with your fellow damned. As you are shackled back to your bench, you feel a strange sense of accomplishment. You have been to the very bottom, the ship's foul heart, and you have come back. It's a journey that few are chosen for, and even fewer survive repeatedly without succumbing to disease. In the twisted logic of this world, you have earned a strange kind of respect. You are no longer just a row. You are a man who has cleaned the bilge, in the monotonous grey and brown world of the rowing deck. Your port is your only window. It's a perfect circle, about a foot in diameter, cut through the thick hull of the ship. It is not a window in the traditional sense. It offers no grand vista. It is a tiny curated, and often frustratingly limited view of the outside world. But it is yours. It is your private portal, your personal connection to the vastness you are traversing. Most of the time, the view is simply water, an endless, shifting expanse of blue or grey or green. You learn to read the water. You can see the mood of the sea in the chop of the waves, the direction of the wind in the ripples on the surface. You learn the difference between the deep, royal blue of the open ocean and the murky, olive green of coastal shallows. The water becomes a character in your story, a silent, powerful entity that dictates the motion of your world. But sometimes the water offers gifts. A pod of dolphins might appear, their sleek grey bodies leaping and playing in the ship's bow wave. They move with a freedom and joy that is so alien to your existence. It feels like a vision from another world. For a few precious moments, you and the men around you might stop your grunting, your faces turn towards the tiny circles of light, watching the dolphins. Even the whale turtle might pause for a second, his grim face betraying no emotion, before his mallet calls you back to reality. The dolphins are a reminder that a world of grace and beauty still exists, and this reminder is both a comfort and a profound cruelty. Other times you see flying fish. They burst from the water, their fins like tiny, iridescent wings, gliding for incredible distances before disappearing back into the waves. They are small, fleeting miracles of silver. You follow their flight with your eyes until they are gone. A brief, beautiful distraction from the ache in your shoulders. These moments of natural wonder are a strange counterpoint to your man-made hell. The Romans, for all their engineering and military might, had a complex relationship with the natural world. They saw omens in the flight of birds, auspic, deified the seasons, and wrote poetry about the beauty of the countryside. Yet they could also be brutally unsentimental, deforesting vast tracts of land for fuel and agriculture. This duality is perfectly captured in your experience. You are trapped in a machine of human cruelty, yet through a small hole in that machine, you can witness moments of sublime, untouched nature. It's a contradiction that historians of Roman culture constantly grapple with, the coexistence of profound artistry and profound brutality. Your port is also a source of information. You see the shadow of another ship passing, and you can try to guess what it is. A fat, slow merchantman, another warship from your fleet, a small, swift fishing boat that you watch with a pang of bitter nostalgia, the color of the water, the type of seabirds, the presence of seaweed. It all tells you something about where you are. The port is also a source of physical sensation. On a hot, calm day, it might offer a whisper of a breeze, a tiny relief from the suffocating heat of the deck. During a storm, it becomes a fire hose, blasting you with cold, stinging spray that soaks you to the bone but also washes away some of the grime. You have a love-hate relationship with it. It's your connection to the world and your most direct point of contact with its discomfort. One day, you see something truly extraordinary. Land, but not the familiar sight of a port. It's a volcanic island, a plume of smoke rising lazily from its peak into a clear blue sky. You are rowing past Stromboli, the lighthouse of the Mediterranean. You've heard sailors' tales about it, a mountain that breathes fire. And now you are seeing it. The men who have reports on that side of the ship murmur in awe. It's a sight of primal power, a reminder of forces far greater than the Roman navy. You wonder about the people who might live on the shores of that island. Do they watch your ship pass, a menacing centipede crawling across the sea? Do they know what kind of misery is contained within its wooden walls? Or are you just a part of the scenery to them, the distant, unremarkable vessel on the horizon? These glimpses of the outside world are what keep a flicker of your humanity alive. They are fragments of a larger reality that you piece together in your mind. The dolphins, the volcano, the distant fishing boat, they are all proof that the world is more than just this bench, this or this pain. They are mental souvenirs, images you can store away and revisit in the darkest hours when the rhythm is relentless and your hope is worn thin. Your port is a small, perfect circle of despair, but it is also, paradoxically, your tiny, perfect circle of hope. You learn to read the sky as well as you read the water. Not the whole sky, of course, but the small patch of it visible when you crane your neck and look up through the port. You learn the difference between the high, wispy clouds of a fair day and the low, heavy, bruised-looking clouds that signal a coming storm. But the most reliable barometer is not in the sky, it's in the air on the rowing deck. Long before the first wave hits, the atmosphere inside the ship changes. A palpable tension descends. The air becomes thick, heavy, and charged with an electric nervousness. The sailors on the deck above move with a new urgency. Their footsteps are quicker, their shouts are sharper. The ropes begin to groan in a different key, a high-pitched whine of protest against the rising wind. The veterans feel it first. You see Gaius sniff the air, his gaze turning distant. He checks the leather as come on his port, pushing it tighter. The other experienced men do the same. There's a subtle, unspoken communication that ripples down the benches. Brace yourselves. The sea is angry. The horse seems to change too. His usual menacing calm is replaced by a tense, predatory alertness. He's not just watching you for mistakes anymore, he's watching the ship, feeling its every movement to the soles of his feet. The mallet's beat becomes more deliberate, more forceful, as if trying to impose human will on the chaos to come. The goal now is not speed, but stability and control to keep the ship's nose pointed into the oncoming wave. The first sign of the storm's arrival is a change in the ship's motion. The gentle, rocking cradle you've grown accustomed to is replaced by a more violent, unpredictable lurching. The ship begins to pitch and roll, climbing the face of a growing swell and then slamming down into the trough with a sickening jolt that shudders through the entire frame. The groaning of the timbers becomes a scream. Water begins to pour through the oar ports, not as a fine spray, but in solid, icy sheets. Within minutes, everyone is soaked and the central gangway is awash with sloshing seawater. The dim light from the lamps reflects off the wet surfaces, creating a disorienting, hellish glare. This is when the true terror of your situation becomes clear. The sailors above have a chance. They are in the open air. They can see the waves coming. They can hold on to the rigging. They have a fighting chance to survive. But you are trapped. You are chained inside a wooden box that is being tossed around by a giant. You can't see the waves that are trying to smash your prison to pieces. You can only feel them, hear them, and pray that the hull holds. The Roman relationship with the sea was one of deep ambivalence. They were not natural seafarers like the Greeks or the Phoenicians. They saw the sea mare as a dangerous, unpredictable force to be conquered and controlled, but never trusted. They called the Mediterranean Mare Nostrum a sea statement of dominance, but it was a boast born of anxiety. Countless Roman poems and texts speak of the terrors of sea travel in the fury of storms. Pliny, the elder, wrote of ships being swallowed whole, And even the great epic, the Aeneid, features a spectacular and terrifying storm. For the Romans, a storm at sea was a manifestation of divine wrath. As the storm worsens, the mallet beat becomes frantic. The hortator is roaring, his voice barely audible over the howl of the wind and the crushing of the waves. You have to row. You have to keep the ship from turning broadside to the waves which would surely capsize it. Your oar becomes a thing of immense weight and terrifying power. One moment, it dips into nothing as the ship crests a wave. The next, it's plunged deep into a mountain of solid water that threatens to rip it from your grasp. Every stroke is a battle, a gamble, fear, cold, and exhaustion combine to create a special kind of misery. Your hands are numb, your muscles are screaming, but you pull. You pull because the man next to you is pulling. You pull because the fear of the ship breaking apart is, for the first time, greater than your fear of the whip. You are no longer just rowing for the halter, you are rowing for your life, as futile as that may seem, determined to drag you and your wooden prison down into the depths. The storm is no longer a collection of sounds and movements, it has become a single, living entity of pure chaos, and you are in its belly. The ship is a toy in the hands of an angry god. It is lifted to terrifying heights, held there for a heart-stopping moment in a groaning, creaking stasis, and then dropped. The fall is the worst part. Your stomach leaps into your throat, and you are surrounded by the deafening roar of water as the ship plunges down the face of a wave, ending in a cataclysmic slam that feels like hitting solid rock. Every timber in the hull shrieks in protest. You are certain with every impact that this will be the one that splits the ship in two. You are deafened by the noise. The howl of the wind through the rigging, the thunder of waves crashing against and over the hull, the splintering crack of a piece of the upper deck giving way, it all blends into a single, overwhelming wall of sound. The hortator is still shouting, his face a mask of desperate fury, but you can't hear his words anymore. You just see his mouth opening and closing, his arms swinging the mallet in a frantic, almost unhittable rhythm. The rowing deck is a scene of pandemonium. Water is everywhere, sloshing me deep down the central gangway, pouring in through the oar ports and any other crack it can find. The lamps have long been extinguished, plunging you into a terrifying, disorienting darkness, broken only by the flashes of lightning that illuminate the hellish scene through the oar ports for a split second. In those brief, stark flashes, you see faces contorted in terror, men vomiting from sea's incessant fear, and the wild, panic toys of the gods. Your world is the oar. It is your only point of focus in the chaos. But it has become your enemy. The sea wrestles with you for control of it. A massive wave can catch the blade and jut the handle back into your chest with the force of a battering ram, knocking the wind out of you and threatening to break your ribs. Or it can be wrenched from your grasp, the huge loom flailing wildly in the cramped space, a deadly hazard to you and the men around you. A man loses his grip. His oar smashes back, catching the man behind him in the head with a sickening crunch. There is no time to help, no time to react. You just have to hold on to your own oar tighter. This is the ultimate vulnerability of a galley rower. In a storm, you are the ship's first and most helpless victim. The Marines and sailors on the deck above are fighting for their lives. But at least they are fighting. They are cutting away broken rigging, manning the bilge pumps, trying to steer. They have agency. You have none. You are chained to your bench in the dark, a passive passenger in a wooden coffin, waiting to see if it will float or sink. The historical records are filled with accounts of shipwrecks. The Mediterranean, while seeming placid at times, is known for its sudden, violent storms. Archaeologists have found the remains of countless Roman ships on the seabed, their cargoes of amphorae and marble columns telling the story of their final, desperate moments. What those wrecks don't show is the fate of the men chained below deck. They don't have to. It's self-evident. If the ship went down, they went down with it. There was no escape. No one was coming to unknot their shackles in the middle of a typhoon. They were quite literally ballast. A new sound begins, one more terrifying than the storm itself. It's a sharp, splintering crack from the front of the ship, followed by a sustained, grinding noise. The ship lurches violently to one side. Shouts of panic from the deck above are now clearly audible. A new note of terror in the symphony. The mast is broken, or the steering oars have been smashed. Something vital has given way. The ship is no longer under control. It begins to wallow, turning broadside to the waves. Now every wave hits the ship like a solid wall, rolling it onto its side with a terrifying, unnatural motion. You have to brace yourself with your feet to keep from being thrown from your bench. The water on the floor is now waist deep. The ship is dying, and you are chained to its corpse. You look at Gaius. In a flash of lightning you see his face. For the first time, there is no cynicism, no detachment. There is only a stark primal fear, the same fear that is clawing at your own throat, as you know that it's over. The moment after the ship loses control is eerily quiet, not because the human noise of resistance has ceased. The frantic beat of the mallet is gone. The hortatores roaring has gone. The organized, rhythmic grunting of the rowers has dissolved into a cacophony of individual prayers and curses. The fight is over. Now there is only waiting. The ship is at the mercy of the sea, rolling violently from side to side. With each roll, the port side dips deep into the water, and a torrent of green, churning sea pours in through the ports. Then it rolls the other way, and the starboard side is submerged. You are no longer in a boat, you are in a washing machine, being tossed about in a slurry of seawater, filth, and debris. Men are screaming. Some are weeping openly. Others, like Gaius, are eerily silent, their faces set in a kind of grim resignation. Eamon, a few benches down, begins to laugh, a high-pitched, hysterical sound that is more terrifying than any scream. He has broken. The sheer, overwhelming hopelessness of the situation has shattered his mind. The guards and the hortat are no longer a threat. They are just as trapped as you are. You see one of the assistants, a man who had lashed you just a few days ago, clinging to a support beam, his face ashen with terror. His whip is gone, lost in the churning water. In this moment, before the final abyss, all ranks have been erased. There are no overseers and no slaves. There are only drowning men. This is a scenario that played out countless times in the ancient world. But what happened in the immediate aftermath of a storm, if the ship miraculously survived the scene, would be one of devastation. The upper decks would be a wreck of splintered masts and tangled rigging. Cargo would be lost, and the rowing deck would be a charnel house. Let's imagine your ship does not sink. By some fluke of wind and wave, it is pushed through the worst of the storm and emerges, battered and broken, into a grey, churning, but survivable sea. The immediate aftermath is a scene of profound silence and stillness. The only sound is the creaking of the damaged hull and the sloshing of water. The first task is a grim accounting. The hortat, or his authority reasserting itself in the quiet, would take stock. How many men are dead? You look around. The man who was hit by the flailing or is slumped in his chains, his head at an unnatural angle. The laughing man has fallen silent, his body floating gently in the waist-deep water. Several benches are empty, their occupants presumably thrown about so violently they were killed by the impact, or perhaps they simply drowned in the chaos. Then comes the work. The dead must be dealt with. There is no sentimentality. You are ordered to unhane your dead comrades. Your hands are clumsy and numb from the cold, but you work with the other survivors, fumbling with the iron pins on the shackles. You avoid looking at their faces. They are not people anymore. They are just dead weight that must be removed. The bodies are dragged up the gangway and, with a grim efficiency, thrown overboard without ceremony, just a splash. They are offerings to a sea that has already taken so much. The damage to the ship must be assessed. You can hear the officers on the deck above shouting damage reports. The mast is gone. The steering oars are shattered. The ship is adrift. But the hull, miraculously, is intact. You are not sinking. You have survived. But you are a cripple on the open sea. This is where the true resilience or desperation of the crew would show. Everyone would be put to work. Even you, the rowers. Small groups might be unchained and tasked with helping the sailors clear the wreckage on deck, a rare and terrifying trip into the open air. You would see the sky, vast and grey. You would see the mangled remains of the upper deck and realize just how close you came to total destruction. This period after the storm is a strange limbo. The rigid discipline is temporarily relaxed, replaced by the urgent necessity of survival. A shared, grim purpose unites everyone on board stay afloat. But this fragile unity is fleeting. As soon as a jury-rigged sail is raised or makeshift steering oars are fashioned, the old order begins to reassert itself. One academic theory, though hard to prove, suggests that surviving a shared catastrophe like this could sometimes forge a strange bond between all survivors, regardless of rank. A captain might show a rare moment of clemency, or an overseer might be slightly less liberal with the whip for a few days. But this band of brothers mentality was likely short-lived. The structural realities of your world's slave and master, guard and prisoner were too deeply entrenched. The shared trauma might be a footnote in your memory, but it wouldn't change your sentence. As you sit back on your bench, shivering in your soaked tunic, the rowing deck is emptier now. There are gaps where men used to be. The symphony has lost some of its instruments. But you know with a cold certainty that as soon as you reach the next port, these gaps will be filled. The machine will be repaired. The dead will be repaired. The dead will be replaced, and the rhythm will begin again. You survived the storm, but you have only survived to row another day. Days, maybe weeks, pass as your crippled ship limps its way across the sea. A makeshift sail has been rigged, and a clumsy, temporary steering system allows for some semblance of control. The rowing is sporadic and inefficient, used only when the wind dies. The atmosphere on board is sullen and exhausted. The shared trauma of the storm has curdled into a grim, weary tension. Then, one afternoon, a new sound cuts through the air. It's a single, sharp blast from a horn on the deck above, followed by a frantic shout from the lookout perched on the stump of the broken mast. The words are indistinct, but the tone is unmistakable alarm. Instantly, the ship transforms. The lethargy vanishes, replaced by a surge of adrenaline. Officers bark commands. Marines who had been lazily sharpening their swords now move with a deadly purpose, checking their armor and shields. The ship, which felt like a floating hospital ward, suddenly remembers it is a predator. Down on the rowing deck, the change is just as dramatic. The Hortator Cassius seems to grow in stature. The weariness drops from him like a cloak. His eyes are sharp and focused. He and his assistants move with a brutal efficiency, striding down the gangway, their wits held ready. Oars out. Cassius roars, and this time his voice has a new, terrifying edge. It's not the voice of a zookeeper managing his animals, it's the voice of a warrior. The mallet begins its beat. TOC. TOC. It's not the steady rhythm of cruising or the frantic pace of fighting a storm. This is something new. It's a deep, powerful, deliberate beat. The ward rum. It's a sound that resonates deep in your bones, a primal rhythm of aggression. TOC pull. TOC pull. The ship begins to pick up speed. Every man on the bench is rowing with a desperate intensity. The fear of the whip is still there, but it's now mixed with a new, more immediate terror, the fear of battle. You don't know who the enemy is. Pirates, a rival navy, it doesn't matter. Your role is the same. You are the engine. The strain is immense. This is not the sustainable pace of a long journey. This is a sprint. You are being asked to give everything you have to push your exhausted, malnourished body to its absolute limit. The man next to you, Gaius, is a study in concentration. His face is a stony mask, his eyes fixed on the back of the bench in front of him. He is pouring every last ounce of his energy into the oar, his movements perfectly synchronized with the beat. This is the moment where the galley's design comes into its own. While sailing ships were dependent on the wind, the galley could move with speed and precision in any weather, making it a devastating weapon in the coastal waters of the Mediterranean. Its primary tactic was not cannon fire but the ram. The goal was to use the speed generated by you, the rowers, to drive your ship into the side of the enemy vessel, cracking its hull and crippling it. Another key tactic was maneuverability, getting in close to allow the Marines on your deck to board the enemy ship. Both tactics depended entirely on the speed and power generated by the men chained below. A fascinating undebated question among military historians is about the motivation of the rowers in battle. For freeborn class IRD, the motivation is clear: patriotism, pay, the hope of victory and glory. But for slaves like you, what is your motive? Victory for Rome is not a victory for you. If your ship is sunk, you drown. If you are captured by pirates, you might simply be put to work on their ship instead. Your fate is grim regardless of the outcome. And yet, you pull. You pull with all your might. Why? Because the Horted or and his assistants are behind you. Their whips are constant, immediate threat. In the heat of the moment, the fear of the lash that is to feet away is more powerful than the abstract fear of an enemy you cannot see. You pull because the man next to you is pulling. And to fall out of rhythm is to invite chaos and punishment. You pull because the entire world is screaming at you to do so. Your individual will is submerged in the collective, frantic will of the war machine. The drumbeat gets faster. TOC. 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 The ship is surging through the water. You can hear the sea hissing along the hull. Above you, you hear the clang of metal on metal as the Marines get into formation. You hear the cornersen blowing a battle call on his horn. The air in the rowing deck is electric with violence. You're at the heart of a weapon that is about to strike, and all you can do is provide the force, blind and chained in the darkness. The drumbeat quickens to a frantic, impossible pace. TOC, TOC, TOC. It's no longer a rhythm to be followed, it's a frantic command to abandon all pretense of pacing and pour every last drop of your life into the oar. This is the final sprint. This is the charge. The ship shudders with the sheer power being generated in its belly. The strain on the wooden frame is immense. You can hear new creaks and groans, sounds of a vessel being pushed beyond its design limits. The air on the rowing deck is thick enough to chew. The collective grunting of the rowers has become a single, continuous roar of exertion. Sweat flies from your body, mingling with the sweat of the men around you. Your vision narrows to a tunnel. The only things that exist are the back of the man in front of you, the rough, splintery feel of the oar handle in your raw palms, and the violent, hammering beat of the drum that is now your own heartbeat. This is the moment of the impetus, the charge. All the complex naval tactics of the Roman fleet, the die, capulus sailing through the enemy line to snap their oars, the peripulus outflanking, encircling the enemy, all boil down to this a moment of extreme, coordinated violence. And you are the source of that violence. You are the gunpowder in the cannon. The Hortator is no longer just an overseer. He is a man possessed. His face is contorted, his eyes wide, spittle flying from his lips as he screams encouragement and threats that are lost in the cacophony. He is beating the drum with a savage fury, not just keeping time, but trying to physically drive the sound into your muscles to make you pull harder, faster. The whips of his assistants are a constant blur, lashing out at anyone whose stroke falters for even a second. A minor nuisance compared to the all-consuming effort of the pull. Your body is screaming. Your lungs burn as if you've inhaled fire. Your muscles, already weakened by malnutrition and exhaustion, are being shredded. You feel a sharp, tearing sensation in your shoulder, but you can't stop. To stop now would be to die. You are locked in this collective madness, a single muscle in a giant, enraged beast. How long can this last? A minute to it feels like an eternity. You are operating in a space beyond normal human endurance. This is where the grim pragmatism of the Roman system is laid bare. The ship's commanders know that this level of exertion will destroy some of the men. It will cause heart failure, burst blood vessels, and tear muscles. But that is an acceptable cost. The survival and victory of the ship, a valuable piece of state property, is worth the expenditure of a few dozen disposable human engines. This cold calculation is a point of frequent, if grim, discussion among historians. Was the loss of rowers in the final charge factored into naval planning as a predictable attrition rate? You feel a change in the water. The oar seems to bite more deeply, the resistance becoming heavier. You are no longer in the open sea, you are in the churned-up wake of another vessel. You are close, terribly close. From the deck above, you hear a new sound, the terrifying THWUMP HWUMP of ballistae being fired, launching heavy bolts at the enemy ship. You hear the answering crash as their own projectiles strike your deck. A splintered piece of wood, as long as your arm, falls through the hatchway and clatters onto the gangway. Then comes the final command. It's not from the drum, but a massive, bellowing roar from the captain on the deck, a sound that cuts through the chaos. C-O-N-C-I-D-I-T. Brace for impact. The drum stops. The rowers who can react in time pull their oars from the water. You heave yours inward just as the world explodes. There is a sound that is not a sound. It's a physical event that you feel in your bones, in your teeth. It's the sound of 1,000 trees snapping at once. A deep grinding, tearing cataclysm. The ship lurches with an impossible violence, throwing you forward against the bench in front of you. Men who aren't braced are thrown around like dolls. The entire structure of the ship screams in agony. You have hit them. The ram has done its work. The sprint is over. Just a few feet above your head. The moment after the impact is a bewildering chaos of sensation. The ship is shuddering, a wounded animal trembling in shock. The deep, grinding groan of your prow embedded in the enemy's hull is a constant, sickening sound. The two ships are locked together in a fatal embrace. For a few seconds, the rowing deck is a mess of tangled limbs and doors as men scramble to recover from the violent collision. But there is no time to assess your own injuries, the bloody lip or the bruised ribs, because immediately a new hell erupts on the deck above you. The battle you powered is now a battle you can only hear. It begins with the sound of the corvus if your ship is equipped with one. It's a huge, heavy boarding bridge with a massive spike on its underside. You hear the creak of its winch and then a tremendous, earth-shaking thud as it drops onto the enemy deck, the spike biting deep into their planks. The two ships are now bound together, an arena for the slaughter to come. Then comes the sound of men. It's not the organized shouting of commands or the grunting of labor. It's the sound of killing. A terrifying, high-pitched symphony of war cries, screams of pain, and the desperate, gurgling gasps of the dying. You can distinguish the deep, guttural roar of your Marines shouting their unit's name as they charge across the boarding bridge. The ceiling above your head, the deck of the ship, becomes a drum for the battle. You hear the frantic, heavy thudding of armored men running on fighting. You hear the sharp, metallic clang of sword on shield, the sickening thwack of a blade hitting leather armor, and the dull, wet crunch of a weapon finding unprotected flesh. Every sound paints a vivid, terrifying picture in your mind. You can almost feel the impacts, the desperate struggles happening just a feet away. You are a spectator in a theater of death, but your seat is in a dark, locked basement beneath the stage. You are utterly powerless. Your part in the battle is over. Now, you are just cargo, waiting to see which side will claim the prize. The fate of the battle above will determine whether you live or die, but you have no say in it. This experience highlights the stark stratification of the Roman military world. The Marines class IRE, or in some eras, legionaries seconded to the fleet were the elite fighters. They trained for this, for the brutal, close-quarters combat of a boarding action. They had armor, weapons, and a chance to fight for glory in their lives. You, the rower, were seen as little more than the motive force, the equivalent of the ship's sails, to be used and then ignored. The question of whether rowers were ever armed and used as a last-ditch defense is a matter of historical speculation. It seems unlikely. Arming 1,000 resentful slaves in the middle of a battle would be an act of extreme desperation, more likely to result in a mutiny than an effective defense. The sounds from above tell a story. A sudden crash and a volley of screams might mean a section of the enemy's railing has given way, sending men plunging into the sea between the two hulls. A lull in the fighting, followed by a concentrated roar from one side, could signal a renewed charge, a turning of the tide. You listen to this auditory tapestry of violence with a desperate, focused attention, trying to decipher your own fate from the noise. Suddenly, a new element enters the soundscape fire. You hear a crackling sound, and a new, acrid smell begins to filter down through the hatchways and door ports, the smell of burning wood and pitch. Someone has started a fire. Is it on your ship or theirs? You don't know. The fear in the rowing deck becomes a palpable thing. Fire is the ultimate terror at sea, more feared even than storms or the enemy. A wooden ship coated in flammable tar is a floating tinderbox. Panic begins to ripple through the benches. Men pull at their chains, their eyes wide with terror. The guards, who had been watching the hatchways with a tense alertness, now look at each other with uncertainty. Their job is to control you, but what is the protocol when the entire world is about to go up in flames? You look at Gaius. He is not panicking. He is watching a small trickle of water seeping in from a seam near his feet. It's a new leak, probably opened by the violence of the ramming. He seems more focused on that than on the sounds of the battle above. Perhaps he has learned that it is the slow, inevitable threats, the rising water, the spreading fire that are more deadly than the loud, frantic ones. The battle rages on. You are a prisoner to its soundtrack. Every scream, every crash, every clang of steel on steel is a note in the song of your potential demise. You are completely, utterly, terrifyingly irrelevant to the struggle. You are just the machine that brought the killers to their work. The smell of smoke grows stronger, thicker. It stings your eyes and rasps in your throat, a more immediate and personal threat than the abstract sounds of the battle above. Then, a new sound joins the symphony, and it is the most terrifying of all. It's not a sound of violence, but of failure. A low, persistent gurgling coming from below the floorboards. It's the sound of the sea invading your ship. The ramming didn't just cripple the enemy, it seems your own vessel was critically wounded in the process. The impact has sprung planks, open seams, and the sea is pouring in. The trickle of water that Gaius was watching is now a steady, gushing stream. The water level on the floor, already awash with storm surge and filth, begins to rise with an alarming speed. It's no longer sloshing around your ankles, it's climbing your shins. And it is biting me cold. Panic, which had been a nervous undercurrent, now explodes. The fragile discipline of the rowing deck shatters completely. Men are screaming, pulling at their chains with frantic, useless strength. The iron rings bolted to the timbers are unyielding. Some men try to use their wooden food bowls to bail, a gesture of pathetic, heartbreaking futility. Others simply stare at the rising water, their faces slack with the shock of this new, inevitable doom. The guards are gone. At some point during the chaos, they must have abandoned their posts, scrambling to the upper deck to save their own lives. They have left you here to die. The Horde at all is nowhere to be seen. All authority has dissolved in the face of the rising tide. The water's at your knees now. It's heavy, and it makes every movement a struggle. The bodies of those killed in the storm or the initial impact float grotesquely in the dark, swirling water. The ship begins to list, tilting at a steep, unnatural angle. Benches on the lower side are now completely submerged. The men chained there are drowning, their futile struggles visible, for a few horrifying moments before they disappear beneath the murky surface. This is the end. There is no ambiguity, no hope for a last-minute rescue. In all the heroic tales of Roman naval battles, in the victory monuments that celebrate the admirals, this part of the story is never told. The fate of the hundreds of men trapped below deck is a silent, unrecorded footnote. Historians can only infer it. The archaeological evidence of shipwrecks often shows skeletons clustered in the hull. Silent testament to the fact that when a ship went down, its chained power source went down with it. There was no procedure for a mass evacuation of the rowers. They were an acceptable loss. You and Gaius are on the higher side of the tilting ship, so you have a few more minutes than the others. The water is at your waist. It's so cold that your body has gone numb. Gaius is not struggling. He is sitting on his bench, looking straight ahead at the wooden wall he has stared at for years. His face is calm. It's not the peace of a man who has accepted his fate, it's the profound emptiness of a man who has known for years that this would be the end. He has simply been waiting for the day. The ship gives a final, terrible groan. A huge section of the deck above you splinters and collapses inward, and for a moment, you see the sky. It's a chaotic, smoke-filled canvas, but it's the sky. You see Marines still fighting on the enemy's ship, oblivious or indifferent to the fact that their own vessel is sinking beneath them. Then the water surges up to meet you. It's a final, crushing wave of black, icy oblivion. You take one last, desperate breath, but it's mostly smoke and foul air. The cold is absolute. Your world, which for so long had been a prison of wood and iron, now dissolves into a swirling, silent darkness. The chain around your ankle, your constant companion in misery, is now your anchor, ensuring you will join the ship on its final journey to the bottom of the sea. There is no struggle, silent pressure of the deep. Your life as a stonemason's apprentice, your ordeal as a rower, your brief, terrifying moments as a part of a war machine, it all ends here, in the cold, dark, indifferent water. But what if that was the end? What if, by someone in a million chance, the story didn't conclude with the icy embrace of the sealer Trireme? Your ship wins the battle. It's damaged but afloat. The enemy is captured or sunk. Your side is victorious. What happens to you now? Do you get a parade, a thank you, a chance at freedom? This is where we must confront the most powerful and enduring myth about galley slaves. A story so ingrained in our culture that it feels like history, the tale of Judah Ben-Hur. In the famous novel and its film adaptations, our hero, a falsely accused nobleman, is sentenced to the galleys. After years of suffering, he saves the fleet's commander, Quintus Aureus, during a battle. In gratitude, Aureus adopts him, giving him freedom, wealth, and a new life. It is a story of incredible resilience, justice, and redemption, and it is almost certainly pure fiction. The reality for a man in your position was brutally simple. Victory for your ship meant nothing for you personally. Your reward for surviving the battle, for pulling on that oar until your muscles tore, was to continue pulling on that oar. You would help row the battered ship back to port, where you would be kept chained to your bench while it was repaired. The dead rowers around you would be replaced with new, fresh bodies. The Marines would get bonuses. The captain might get a triumph, but you would get your usual ration of hardtack and gruel. The machine doesn't reward its cogs for functioning correctly, it simply continues to use them. So was there ever a path to freedom for a purchased slave or a criminal condemned ad rem? The chances were infinitesimally small. There was no standard term of service after which you were released. Your sentence was, for all practical purposes, life. The only release was death, either from exhaustion, disease, or battle. However, Roman society was complex, and there were always exceptions, however rare. This is a topic of intense debate among historians because the evidence is so thin. Could a rower show such exceptional bravery or provide such a crucial service that he might be granted manumission? The act of freeing a slave, it's theoretically possible. A commander had the authority to do so. But the context makes it highly improbable. How could a man chained to a bench in the dark even demonstrate bravery in a way that the commander would notice? Your job was to be unseen and unheard. The anonymous power behind the throne. Saving the commander's life, as Ben-Hur did, would require you to somehow be unshamed on the upper deck, and in the right place at the right time during the chaos of battle, a sequence of events so unlikely as to be miraculous. A more plausible, though still rare, scenario might involve the freeborn provincial rowers, the class IRE. These men were not slaves. They had enlisted, and their contract promised them Roman citizenship after 26 years of service. For them, there was a light at the end of the tunnel, however distant and dim. If they could survive the storms, the battles, the diseases, and the sheer grind for more than 2.5 decades, they could retire as full citizens with a pension. This promise of citizenship was a powerful tool Rome used to man its auxiliary forces and its navy, integrating provincials into the fabric of the empire. But you are not a class IRE, you are a branded slave. So what about other, less savory paths? What if you were captured by pirates? This wasn't a rescue. It would most likely be a lateral move. You would simply be put to work on their ship, rowing under a different, but likely just as brutal, overseer. Your ownership would be transferred, nothing more. The Ben-Hur story is a powerful myth because it speaks to our deep-seated need for justice and for the triumph of the human spirit. It's a narrative of hope in a hopeless situation, but the historical reality was likely far closer to the grim truth of the system. You were property, a piece of equipment, and the Roman state, for all its laws and philosophies, was brutally pragmatic when it came to its machinery. You don't free a hammer after it hits a nail particularly well, you just use it to hit the next one. Your value was in your bondage, and your freedom had no place on the balance sheet of the Roman Navy. The myth offers a comforting fantasy, but the truth is written in the cold iron of your chains. The myth of a heroic escape is a ghost that no longer haunts you. The fires of Battleland, the fury of the storm are distant memories. What remains is the relentless grinding passage of time, measured not in moons or seasons, but in the wearing down of your own body. You didn't die spectacularly. You are, instead, simply wearing out. Years have passed on this bench. How many 5-10 you've lost count? The tally marks you once saw on another bench now seem like a foolish vanity. Time is not a thing to be counted here, it is a thing to be endured. Your body is no longer the weary, resilient machine it became in the first few years. It is a frayed rope, threatening to snap. The chronic ache in your lower back is no longer just an ache, it's a permanent, dull fire. Your shoulders have a geography of their own, knotted with muscle and scar tissue so dense they feel like wood. You've learned to live with a constant, low-grade pain, but now new pains appear sharp, stabbing sensations in your joints, a weakness in your grip that frightens you. You are probably not yet 30 years old, but by the standards of this bench, you are an old man. Life expectancy was brutally short for everyone for a galley rower. Every year survived was a statistical anomaly. The veteran Gaius is long gone. He didn't die in a storm or a battle. One day a hacking cough that had plagued him for weeks simply worsened. He was removed from the bench, and you never saw him again. The man next to you now is a nervous, twitchy youth from Iberia who still flinches at every shadow. You are the one who knows the secrets of the grease and the vinegar. You are the one who watches the new arrivals with a weary, knowing gaze. But you know the end is coming. You can feel it in the way your body betrays you. Some mornings it takes you a full minute to unclench your hands from the gnarled claws they become during sleep. The oar, which was once an extension of your body, now feels like an alien object, a colossal weight that your mind wills to move but your body struggles to obey. This was the most common end for a galley rower, not a glorious death but a slow, inexorable decline. Attrition. You were a consumable good with a limited shelf life. A fascinatingly grim point of consideration is the relative value of the rower versus his equipment. A single lawnmower made from a quality piece of fir or beech, properly seasoned and balanced, was a valuable crafted item. A slave, especially one captured in a raid or bought in bulk, could be a cheaper, more easily replaced commodity. There is a very real, practical sense in which the Navy might have valued your oar more than your life. The day comes as you knew it would. It starts like any other. The foul air, the meager ration, the first stirrings of the ship. The Hortet or not Corsius. He was replaced years ago by a younger, equally cruel man begins his beat. TOC. You lean forward. TOC are dubbing tools. You try to push the oar for the dip, and you can't. It's not a sharp pain. It's a profound, hollow emptiness. The signal has been sent from your brain, but it gets lost somewhere in the frayed wiring of your nerves and the shredded fibers of your muscles. Your handle doesn't move. You try again, a surge of panic rising in your chest. You strain, your face contorting with effort, but your arms feel like they are filled with wet sand. The man behind you curses as his or clashes with your stationary one. The whip cracks on your back out of pure reflex, but you barely feel it. All your attention is focused on this internal catastrophic failure. The Hortator stops the rhythm. The sudden silence makes everyone turn to look at you. He walks down the gangway and stands before your bench. He doesn't look angry. He looks appraising, like a master carpenter inspecting a tool that has just split in his hand. He sees your straining face, your trembling, useless arms. He understands immediately. He gives a short, sharp nod to one of his assistants. There is no pronouncement, no ceremony. Your useful life is simply over. The assistant arrives with the same hammer and pin used to shackle you here all those years ago. He works with the same indifferent efficiency. The sound of the pin being hammered out is the sound that began your ordeal, and now it is the sound that is ending it. The iron shackle falls away from your ankle. The feeling of lightness is dizzying. You are helped to your feet, but your legs can barely hold you. The young Iberian next to you stares, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and perhaps a sliver of pity. You are a ghost of his own future. What happens to the bodies of men like you? Historians debate whether any formal records were kept for state-owned slaves who died of natural causes at sea, or if they were simply written off as an operational loss, like a snapped rope or a spoiled sack of grain. You are about to become another unwritten statistic. As you are half carried, half dragged down the gangway, you are no longer a part of the machine. You are just refused to be cleared away. Your story on this ship is over. You are dragged up the steep steps of the hatchway, a journey you haven't made in a decade. The sudden blast of sunlight and fresh, salty air is a physical shock. It's so bright it's painful, and you squeeze your eyes shut. The air is so clean it makes you cough, your lungs rejecting this unfamiliar purity after years of breathing the foul miasma of the rowing deck. When you finally force your eyes open, the world is a dizzying, overwhelming blur of blue and white. The sea and the sky are vast, open, and infinite in a way you had forgotten was possible. The deck of the ship, which you only ever glimpsed, is a chaotic landscape of ropes, sailors, and military equipment. Everything seems impossibly large and bright. You are not treated with cruelty now, not with kindness either. You are treated with a profound indifference, like a sack of grain that has gone bad. The two guards who have you by the arms are not rough, just efficient. They drag you to the ship's rail. You can see the waves churning below, the white foam created by the passage of the ship you had spent a lifetime propelling. This is it, the final disposition. You are no longer useful as a source of power. You are not worth the food or water it would take to keep you alive. You are simply a burden, a piece of used-up equipment to be disposed of. There will be no splash, no ceremony. They won't even waste the energy of throwing you far. They'll just release you. You look out at the horizon one last time. It's a clean, sharp line dividing the blue of the sky. It's the most beautiful and the most terrible thing you have ever seen. It is the image of a freedom you will never touch. You think for a fleeting second of the apprentice stonemason you once were in a dusty town far away. He seems like a character from a children's story, a boy from a different world, a different lifetime. The guards let go. You don't have the strength to fight, to cling to the rail. You simply topple over, a silent, unprotesting fall. The wind rushes past your ears for a brief second, and then the cold, shocking embrace of the sea envelops you. And from the deck of the Trireme, no one watches you go. The ship continues on its course, leaving you behind in its churning wake. It does not slow down. It does not pause. Back down on the rowing deck, the brief interruption is already over. The Hordator has already barked an order. A new man, perhaps a prisoner taken in the last battle, or a fresh purchase from the last port. He's being shoved towards your empty bench. He has the same look of terror and confusion that you once wore. The smith is there with his hammer and his iron pin. Clang, the sound of the shackle being hammered into place. T-O-C-O-C. The mallet strikes the block of wood. The rhythm begins anew. The new man struggles to find the beat. He's all clumsy and out of sync. He will learn, or he will be broken. Your position has not been left empty. Your absence is not felt. The machine barely registered the removal of one faulty part before a replacement was slotted in. The great ship, a symbol of Roman power and dominion, continues to glide across Mare Nostrum propelled by the endless, anonymous and replaceable misery in its belly. The symphony continues, with a new instrument in your chair, playing the exact same notes of pain and despair. The cycle is unbroken. Your story is over, but the story of the oar, the bench, and the chain goes on and on and on. And now the story is over. The sound of the mallet fades, the creaking of the ship's timbers grows distant, and the cold of the sea recedes into a gentle, quiet warmth. The struggle is done. All the pain, the fear, the endless, grinding effort it all just dissolves. Imagine that feeling of letting go, not as a fall into a cold ocean, but as a slow, weightless drift into a deep and peaceful sleep. The tension in your shoulders, the ache in your back, let it all go now. Let it be washed away by a current of profound calm. You are no longer chained to a bench. You are floating in a place of perfect stillness and silence. The darkness is not the oppressive blackness of the rowing deck, but a soft, velvety darkness, like a warm blanket being pulled up to your chin. There are no more demands, no more rhythms to keep, no more whips to fear. I rest so deep and so complete that it soothes a lifetime of weariness. Feel the gentle rocking motion, not of a ship in a storm, but of a cradle being softly swayed. Each gentle rock carries you further and further away signals, out into the vast, calm ocean of your dreams. Let the sound of my voice be the last whisper of the wind in the sails, guiding you safely into that quiet harbor. You have rowed enough for one lifetime. Now, it is time to simply drift, to be at peace, to sleep. The end of the article. Good night.